This is Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast, hosted by me, Jody Ketterbuck. Montana Farmers Union supports its members through education, legislation, and cooperation. This bi-weekly production will help you stay informed and connected to current agriculture issues, news, and events. Hi, I'm Jody Ketterbuck, the Education Associate and Ambassador for Cascade and Teton Counties for Montana Farmers Union. I work out of the Great Falls office. I've had many interactions with Montana Farmers Union over the last 20 years as an agriculture teacher and FFA advisor in Great Falls and then Sims. After 29 years in the high school agriculture classroom here in Montana and in Pennsylvania, I've decided to retire from the classroom, but not from my love of agriculture, education, and the people who make this industry tick. Joining the staff of Montana Farmers Union feels like a good fit that will allow me to continue to provide valuable and necessary education experiences for people in and about agriculture. I will continue to advocate for agriculture and rural life. This Lunch and Learn podcast will be one of my undertakings. Well, that's enough about me. Grab some lunch and let's get right into our updates, news, and today's topic. What is Montana Farmers Union? In this episode, we will visit with Walter Schweitzer, President of Montana Farmers Union, Rachel Prevost, Membership Director. Each episode, we'll try to do a quick calendar review of the things that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. You can always find the most up-to-date and ever-changing calendar of events at montanafarmersunion.com/news-events/calendar. Okay, statewide, there's an organic certification workshop via Zoom on June 6th. There's a poultry processing series held in Ronan. Part 1 will be June 12th, Part 2, June 19th. Montana Farmers Union Camp at Arrow Peak is throughout the summer for youth ages 8 to 18, depending on the camp week. In District 1, we have a kids' day camp for Judith Basin County Farms, June 4th, and a hay day at Harvest Hills Golf Course in Fairfield on June 10th. In District 2, join Teton, Liberty, Toole local meeting following the Western Triangle Ag Research Center Field Day in Conrad on July 10th. In District 4, there's a kids' day camp for Rosebud and Treasure County youth at Forsyth Community Gardens. Grades kindergarten through 3rd will be on June 10th, with grades 4 through 6 on June 14th. There's also a kids camp for Powder River County at Cottonwood Park, grades kindergarten through 3rd on June 20th, and grades 4 through 6 on June 24th. There's always lots of exciting things going on with Montana Farmers Union throughout the state. Check the calendars for the most up-to-date information. In news and headlines, the federal House and Senate Ag committees have released their versions of the Farm Bill. Last week, the National Farmers Union President, Rob LaRue, issued the following statement after the passage of the Farm, Food, and National Security Act of 2024 out of the House Agriculture Committee. He said, "A successful Farm Bill needs broad bipartisan support. We applaud today's progress, but we know that significant improvements will need to be advanced. This bill, House Bill 8467, includes a number of Farmers Union priorities, but those positive steps can't come at the cost of broad support that's needed to pass the bill on the House floor. We look forward to further activity on the Farm Bill process and will continue to advocate for family farmers and ranchers as the Senate Ag Committee develops its drafts. We'll keep you up to date and have updates as that progresses." So for today, the Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast has been relaunched in a new format. The episodes will still be available on YouTube, but the audio will also be available on many podcast platforms. We know that some of you spend long days on tractors, horseback, and in the truck traveling, and hope that you will travel with us. It is the intent to drop new episodes every other Friday, starting on May 31st. The podcast will last approximately 35 minutes with a review of upcoming events, important state and national news, and topics from experts covered in a question and answer format. Upcoming topics will be promoted on social media and in the members' weekly boot up so that you can submit your questions for the experts. Let us know what you think of the format or suggest changes on social media channels. The Montana Farmers Union has a membership with diverse interests in agriculture. I intend to explore our topics from three main agricultural perspectives: the producer, the support industry, and the consumer. The producers are the farmers and ranchers who grew and nurture the many agricultural commodities and products in Montana, such as grain, livestock, vegetables, and fruit. The agricultural support industry is all of those individuals and businesses who help the producer get the job done, such as input sales like seeds, fertilizer, feed, equipment, and supplies, and services like agronomists, veterinarians, and repair technicians. I'm sure I've left someone out, but you get the idea. The consumer is all of us. Anyone who eats, wears fiber, or uses natural resources is an agricultural consumer. Without ag, we would be hungry, naked, and cold. I thought a good place to start is talking about what is Montana Farmers Union. Montana's Farmers Union has worked more than 100 years for family farms, ranches, and rural communities. MFU supports its members through strong education programs for both youth and adults by advocating member-driven policies and legislation at state and federal level, and cooperation through producer-owned co-ops. Montana's Farmers Union is a grassroots nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving the agricultural way of life. As agricultural producers, you benefit from the belief that no farmer or rancher should stand alone, and together, we are fighting for the issues that will preserve agriculture and rural communities for the next generation. As the agricultural support industry, you benefit from a membership that is made up of folks who support rural communities and family farms and ranches and businesses. As consumers, we benefit from one of the world's safest and most reliable food supplies. With the influence of Montana's Farmers Union, we have access to local foods and fiber. Enjoy the podcast. Today, we have three special guests. Let's get started. So, this is Mr. Walter Schweitzer. He's the elected president of Montana Farmers Union, now serving his third term. Walter grew up on a purebred Simmental ranch in Judith Basin County near Geyser. He purchased his own farm at the age of 18 and graduated from Montana State University with a BS in agronomy. Like many others, he learned the importance of market access and common sense trade deals through the 1980s agriculture crisis. He and his wife, Cindy, spent 5 years in Saudi Arabia before returning to Montana in 1990, where they've raised 2 daughters and are still ranching in the Geyser area. So, hi.
Howdy.
Give us a little bit of history of the Farmers Union from your perspective.
Well, Montana Farmers Union's roots go back to the early 1900s, I think 1912. And National Farmers Union, it got its start in Texas, I believe in like 1904. I'm not positive of that date, pulling it from my head here. It was started because family farmers were being taken advantage by corporate monopolies. And they felt that if we had a united voice, we could stand up to them and protect the family farm. Interestingly, things haven't changed.
Yeah.
And we made some real headway right at the beginning. And as a result, things like the Packer Stockyard Act, which was a bill, a law that was passed that Farmers Union was instrumental in helping write and get passed. Very shortly after that, there was a Packers consent decree that was signed by the big Packers of the day that acknowledged the rules of Packer Stockyard and that they would follow these rules. And you mentioned that my wife and I had to leave Montana to go to the Middle East. We did that because of the Reagan farm crisis of the 80s. And we were forced because we had debt that we couldn't pay on our farm. And so we were forced to go somewhere else because agriculture was in total disarray in the 80s here in the United States. And so I spent 5 years in the Middle East. Most of that time and most of that revenue I got generated was to pay off the debts of my farming operation. And we came back when we got pregnant, and I didn't want my family to be raised in Saudi Arabia, wanted it here in Montana, and started looking for a new farm to purchase to get started again. And because of the farm crisis of the 80s, we had all kinds of options of farms to buy at on 10 cents on the dollar. And many of these farms were owned by farm credit, by insurance companies, trusts, who foreclosed on those farms and took them back. And we purchased a farm up at Tiber Reservoir that was owned by John Hancock Insurance. And they financed us purchasing that farm. And that's how we got back here. That's why Farmers Union is so important. Much of the laws and rules that we advocated for, the farm bills that Farmers Union advocated for, started to get unraveled. First in the 70s, under Nixon's administration, but then the real problems began in the 80s. One of the first things Reagan did was repeal the Packers consent decree. And this opened up the door. And if you remember, both of these administrations advocated that we need to get big. And this was coming at the expense of the family farm.
Yeah.
And so here we are today. We lost thousands and thousands of family farms in the 80s. And we've never recovered. And and many of the laws and rules that were in Packer Stockyard and other antitrust, the administrations quit enforcing them. And it was administrations on both parties.
Right.
It was across the board. It really accelerated during the Reagan years.
Do you think some of that has to do with the distance that people are getting from the farm and their lack of knowledge of where their food comes from?
No, it really is the corporate control.
Okay.
And then when Citizens United was kind of accepted so that the corporations could actually contribute to campaigns. That's when it really accelerated, because then we started ignoring the laws and creating laws that benefited the corporations at the expense of consumers and family farms. And so Farmers Union, when we organized at the turn of the century 120 years ago, it was critically important, and it did change the trend. But now we have to fight even harder because these corporations have got a stranglehold on us, on the consumers, on Congress. And so it's more important than ever that we're united in voice and challenge some of these laws and rules that are adversely impacting the family farmer and rancher to benefit the big corporate monopolies.
Yeah. So, in all of that, what made you decide that you wanted to run for president of Montana Farmers Union and commit your time to that?
Well, there was a couple of things. I was being encouraged by board members and members to consider it. after the 2016 election, my wife and I had a real kind of heart-to-heart discussion about where we go from here. And we talked, we traveled the world uh, and lived in other countries, and we really thought about possibly moving. And the more we thought about it, we decided that we wanted to stay here and fight for our country. And we visited about how to do that. And because of Farmers Union's philosophy and its ability to get things done in the past, thought that that was our best opportunity to try to make change. And that's when we've always been involved in Farmers Union. I remember going to picnics as a little kid, Farmers Union picnics, and I remember the old timers talking about what we really need to happen is what happened in World War II. When consumers were going to grocery stores and finding empty shelves, they realized the importance of food. And so we did. I ran for president of Farmers Union, was fortunate enough to get support, really enjoy what I'm doing. And right after my election, the COVID pandemic started. And I remember reaching out to President Rob LaRue and telling him that we're having happen right now what our ancestors said we needed to happen to make change. And if we don't take advantage of this opportunity to educate the consumers of the importance of a family farm, then we failed. And we brainstormed a little bit. And that's where the whole fairness for farmers concept came up. And Farmers Union embraced that. Farmers Union Enterprise helped finance it. And we started messaging the importance of the family farm and how we need fairness for farmers. And it's worked. And fortunately, in 2020, President Biden started. And Farmers Union has been going to Washington, D.C. to advocate for family farms for 120 years. We first did it by train. Now we do it by plane. We call it the fly-in. And we go and meet with congressional leaders from our states and from states that don't have farmers union organizations. And I am certain that my parents, our parents of our current members, and other members have met with almost every congressional leader for the last 60 years at some point or another. And I am sure that President Biden had Farmers Union members come to his office while he was a congressman, while he was a senator, talking about the importance of family farms, talking about legislation that could make a difference, talking about enforcing the antitrust laws and to address the anti-competitive practices of corporate monopolies. And that's why I believe early on in his administration that he announced 72 executive orders to take on these corporate monopolies and their anti-competitive practices. And they've been chipping away at it. And when Biden announced those 72 executive orders, during that speech, he talked about this is fairness for farmers. He heard us. We are having an impact. And we have to keep up the fight. We have to continue to educate our leaders, our neighbors on the importance. And, Farmers Union is in a very unique position because we don't depend on corporations for our funding. In fact, we're not even depending on our membership dues because Farmers Union, uh, nearly 100 years ago, started cooperatives, which are farmer-owned businesses, and many of these cooperatives we're still involved in, and that generates a revenue for our organization to fund much of the activities we do. And so, there's other farm organizations out there and they serve a purpose too, but they're dependent for their funding of their organizations on receiving donations from these corporate monopolies. And so that puts them a little bit at odds when advocating in Washington, D.C. Because if you're gonna piss off your banker, so to speak, you have to be ready for the consequences. So they don't. Farmers Union, we don't have that fear. We can advocate freely for the family farm without fear of retribution to our bottom line. That's a big difference.
That is a big difference, and that makes the work that's done have a different purpose.
Right. Yeah. And you can't ever really question Farmers Union's motives because right from the beginning, we're family farm oriented. Our representation is all family farms. Um, we have in our bylaws that you cannot vote on policy or leaders unless you're actively engaged in farming. You can be retired from farming too. That's a big difference. If you look at the leadership of some of these other organizations, they're not involved in farming and ranching. They're managing businesses. And that's a different perspective. And I think it's an important difference.
Yeah, yeah. So you've obviously had lots of experience with Montana Farmers Union. What has been your most memorable experience and why?
Meeting the members, traveling around the state, going to meetings in different areas, hearing the stories uh, of members talking about past Farmers Union meetings and locals, meeting a couple that are in their 70s, talk about how they met each other at a Farmers Union camp. It's just, we have a history and it's a deep history. And I really enjoy hearing those stories and visiting with members and talking about what we can do to make change. And I almost always, when I go to these meetings, always learn something about Farmers Union I didn't know, or even an idea that we should try. Um, it's been rewarding in that respect. I would say starting Montana Premium Processing Co-op, uh, a recent cooperative that Farmers Union was involved in. Our cooperative history also goes way back. And many of our members, they get their telephone and their electricity from a cooperative that was started by Farmers Union. And it was because we identified a need and we worked together to solve that need. And that's what we just did with these meat processing cooperatives. We started another one in Columbia Falls, Glacier Processing Cooperative. And these are member-owned cooperatives, producers that are selling their product direct to consumer already, that were struggling to find processing capacity for their livestock. And so they joined together to form these cooperatives and took control of their own destiny. I would say that was another piece of excitement that I got out of Farmers Union. Um, I'm hoping that there'll be more.
So we appreciate the time that you've taken today. If there was one piece of information for our listeners to know about Montana Farmers Union or about you, what would you say that you really want our listeners to know?
Well, you need to know that Farmers Union advocates for consumers and families. And that I am almost certain includes you. And so you don't have to be a farmer to benefit from what Farmers Union is doing. And so go to MontanaFarmersUnion.com. Look at what we're up to around the state of Montana, around the nation. And if you aren't impressed, I would be surprised. And you could support us by joining. And we also have a wonderful, wonderful camp up in the Highwood Mountains. And it's a great opportunity for your kids to get away from the home in the summer, to meet kids from around the state and to learn more about agriculture and cooperatives. And in the case of some of our older members, they might even meet their future spouse there.
Yeah, well, and that's a great lead into our next segment when we talk to the membership director. So thank you very much, and I appreciate. Please welcome Ms. Rachel Prevost, the membership director for Montana Farmers Union. Rachel has worked with MFU for 3.5 years, serving in many roles on the MFU staff. She's been the lobbyist, assistant camp advisor, and currently serves as the Government Affairs and Member Services Director. She also coordinates the ambassador team. Rachel is from Lambert, Montana. She grew up on a family farm and ranch where her family grows grains and raises beef cattle. She's a graduate of Carroll College in Helena with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies, Public Relations, and Political Science. So, Rachel.
Hi, Jody.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. So today we want to just visit a little bit about what the membership in Montana Farmers Union has available for people, and what the role of MFU is and what you get from being in
Absolutely.
MFU.
Yeah.
So, who should be a member of Montana Farmers Union?
That's a great starting point, because I think when we talk about Montana Farmers Union, the thing that really sticks out to me is that it's a grassroots organization. So it's truly about the people who make up Montana Farmers Union, which is our members. That means it's family farmers, ranchers, rural community members. People who are really passionate about local food system and regional food system work are also critical in this. And then we look at, we've got cooperatives that provide really essential services to our rural communities, a lot of different types of support organizations that do a lot of great work in rural communities, like our rural healthcare systems, our schools, things that are truly the lifeblood. That's what we're here to be supportive of. That's what we're supposed to be. Back up. That's what we're here to be supportive of. That's where we can build community. So when we look at who's the ideal member, it's anybody that cares about the sustainability and the vitality of family farm agriculture for generations to come. So that's, like I said, family farmers, ranchers, rural community members, and just agricultural advocates.
So what kind of activities and events are provided by Montana Farmers Union?
Yeah, so the cool thing about MFU is that we offer such a wide range of membership gatherings, educational opportunities from youth to adults. And I think that's awesome, because our organization is really focused on that next generation, making sure they have a spot at the table. So the ambassador team, they work super hard to bring membership gatherings or speakers, educational programming. And the nice thing about having our ambassador team on the ground is that it is all about what those community members want. It's all about how we can tailor to the needs of the members in that community. And so maybe what's working or going on in the Flathead isn't going to be what's happening in Southeast Montana. But the great thing is that we have different ambassadors who are listening to members in those communities and bringing the programming that suits them the best. We have our Ladies Who Ag programming, which is newer to Montana Farmers Union, and that's been a cool addition that was born out of our women's conferences. We've got our book club, which is kind of an at your own pace engagement with Montana Farmers Union, where we read Farmers Union family farm oriented books. And then we gather together on Zoom, hopefully in person in the future. And we have the chance to talk about those books and just in general what it means to be rural community members and being on family farms and ranches. We also have a lot of different national events that members can be engaged with as well. We do a DC fly-in. We also have the national convention where members can get elected to be delegates and represent Montana agriculture at National Farmers Union. And we have our summer camp program, which is super exciting and a great opportunity for those youth to learn not only cooperative based skills, but about Montana agriculture and make lifelong friends.
Awesome. That's a lot of opportunities that covers a lot of ground. Do you have to be a member to attend these functions?
So our organization, obviously we're a membership organization, but our events are open to the public, friends, family of members. Members definitely get some perks in terms of access to the national events. You do have to be a member to engage with us in the national programming, and to like become a delegate and serve on our board or be in a leadership position. You do have to be a member. But in terms of like our membership gatherings that happen in our local communities and our day camps and all those kind of programs, certainly open to all. And then like our summer camp program, like you get definitely like a discount if you're a member and things like that. So it's worth being a member, because you're not only part of our community and you get all the great resources that come with that, but then you get discounted access to a lot of our stuff.
We're going to talk about some of the communications later in the
Awesome.
broadcast, and so they can see what members get as far as communications. So we've talked a little bit about the events. What are some of the benefits besides discounts for membership?
So when we look at membership benefits at Montana Farmers Union, there is so much that comes with your membership on the advocacy side of things. Like Jody had mentioned, we do have those publications, which we'll get more into. So those are certainly to keep you in the loop, keep you up with ag news and all the good things that we're working on. We offer a lot of leadership and advocacy training opportunities from, those 4-H and FFA kids all the way through to our full membership. So those are certainly available to folks that want to step forward and build their rural leadership. We do have some different insurance benefits that are available to members as well. We do a lot of education and webinars, which is super excited about this podcast because that's going to be a big part of that. We have our summer camp program. We have grant funding that is super exciting that we can offer that in rural communities and looking at agriculture and ag education projects. And that foundation, the Montana Farmers Union Foundation, is the one that does that. And also in that umbrella is our scholarships. So members have access to scholarships for continued education, and that's for graduating high school students, that's for current college students and non-traditional students. So great opportunity to support that next generation. We have our community that Montana Farmers Union is truly all about, and we have our ambassador team, which is on the ground there to support you. So we have those MFU planned community gatherings and events that not only further your education, maybe on a specific topic, but it helps you build social connections and networking. And you'll probably meet folks that you didn't even know lived right down the road from you, which has been a fun thing that we've seen at some of our women's conferences. We have our annual convention invitation, which is where we do the grassroots policy work at the organization. So there's, producer members who are eligible to vote are able to do that, but our convention is certainly open to all who are interested and want to come learn about what we're working on. And then we provide a voice in democracy. And so when we talk about what that looks like at the state level, that's lobbying in the state legislature, that's bill tracking in the state legislature, that's leading on bills in the state legislature. And then we look at that DC fly-in as well as the advocacy that National Farmers Union does with Congress. We also have the mental health benefit, which is brand new and it's super, it's necessary for our rural communities, available to all of our members. It's a huge coalition that is working on this benefit. And so it's certainly open to all who may need it. And we would never want to provide a barrier to reaching that sort of care. And it's a great benefit that you get access to as a Farmers Union member.
Yeah. And there are some discounts and percent off and that kind of stuff to benefits at some of the stores and retail facilities as well. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So those are member exclusive. So you do have to be a member to access the retail benefits that we do offer. So we have some Montana specific discounts to hotels. That includes Great Falls, Billings, Bozeman, Kalispell. So when you travel out of your small community for maybe a sporting event, or maybe you're heading to the Bobcats game or something like that,
Or coming to
convention. Yes, absolutely. I hope that's the case. We definitely have those hotel options for you. There are some national discounts as well to hotels nationwide. So when you hit that family vacation to get off the farm and refresh, which I know is rare, you can take advantage of some of our travel planning, which is car rental discounts, flight discounts, and national hotel discounts. We have some kind of different equipment and supply benefits too, which are kind of interesting and a neat addition, I think, to what we offer. But some of those maybe include, you're familiar with Johnny's Select Seeds. That's a pretty large gardening company in the nation. We have like the Working Person store. There's like a Drone Launch Academy discount if you're interested in that. Farm Commons producer membership discount, which is like farm business law. And then there's just some other workwear and like farm and supply discounts that you can get. And then I think the two cool, really exciting ones are the Boot Barn discount and the Cabela's discount that we offer. So those are nationwide discounts. The Boot Barn one is in store and the Cabela's one is over the phone. Yeah.
Excellent. And all of those are available on the website.
Yes. Yep. You can find all of those on the website. And then there are some like specific access codes that they do have to contact our office for, which I'm pretty available, always checking my emails. So if you reach out to me or you reach out to our office, we'll be able to get you those discount codes.
Yeah. So is there a hierarchy of organization levels? Kind of how does that work? And what does that mean for the members?
Yeah, so there are a lot of states that have farmers union just like we do in Montana. And then we have the National Farmers Union, which is that national organization that we as states are also a part of. So if you're a Montana Farmers Union member, you're also a National Farmers Union member. The way that this kind of works for us is that we elect our delegates to go to the national convention every year. And then those folks go and represent Montana Farmers Union at the National Farmers Union convention. So I think that's a good hierarchy when we look at the state and the national. When we look at just Montana and then our local divisions, we have our Farmers Union locals, which are county-based local groups of members who gather together and they either work on projects or they're offering scholarships, or the work, like the Glacier Processing Co-op was kind of born out of a bunch of Flathead Farmers Union members getting together and working because they saw a need in their community that was coming up, and they got the right folks involved, and now we have this awesome meat processing co-op, and they were able to keep a facility going. So that's just like a glimpse at what some of our locals can work on. We also can utilize those locals to provide day camps, and we can work on different 4-H and FFA projects. Really, we're here to support the locals, how they want to be operating in their community as Farmers Union.
And in our news and events and upcoming stuff, we talked about districts. And so that district representation is to the Montana Farmers Union Board.
Yes. Yeah. So if you look on our website, you'll see we've got a couple different maps that show where staff and board cover. So we do have our board member districts. And so you'll see that on the website. And you'll see our ambassador regions. And so while they may not align perfectly, that's so you know who to talk to if you have a question or if you want to learn more about Farmers Union. You can reach out to your board member, you can reach out to your ambassador, and all of that contact info is available on the website.
Yeah. So about you.
About me.
Yeah. So what made you stick with Montana's Farmers Union through all these position changes?
Yeah, so it's been a really awesome journey, and I'm super grateful for all the opportunities that this work has provided to me. Their MFU is truly an advocate for the family farm, and I'm super, super passionate about the family farm being there for the next generation of producers, and that includes my family as well. I grew up obviously on the family farm, and that sort of upbringing and lifestyle is something I wouldn't trade for the world. And I would really hope that that is something that we can continue for those future kiddos and producers that want to raise a family in rural communities.
Right.
So that matters to me a lot. So I think when we look at what's happened in our rural communities, it matters to me a lot that rural communities survive. And that's what Montana Farmers Union is all about. When family farmers are strong, rural communities are strong. And that's a lifestyle that is just personally important to me.
And you were involved in some of those youth organizations, 4-H and FFA, and
yep, yeah. Shout out to both 4-H and FFA, wonderful programs that helped me get started in my leadership programming and training in my life, which has certainly benefited me well in my current career. I just can't say enough good things about those programs. And I've shout out BPA too, because I learned a lot of valuable skills from that program too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our CTSOs are so
super important. Yeah.
So you've got about 3.5 years of experiences. So what Montana Farmers Union experience has been most memorable for you and why?
There are so many. It's hard to even pick, but I think I've had the opportunity to go on to Washington, D.C. fly-ins, and that is just been not only a phenomenal opportunity for me personally, but to watch our members really get after advocating for Montana agriculture and family farmers, is super cool and exciting. And I also think the most memorable thing about working here is that we just have such extraordinary individuals that are members, and they're just doing really innovative and cool things on their farm. And they're, open and welcoming, and they come talk to us about it, and they share their knowledge, and like that is like just such valuable opportunity and experience. Everyone is trying to be the best steward of the land that they can, whether you're conventional or whether you're organic. Everyone's doing the best that they can, and the family farm looks very different for everybody. And when I just have gotten to meet such cool people, and I'm so grateful to have built this wonderful, I truly call it a family, because that's how I feel about our members.
Excellent, excellent. So as we wrap up here, if there was one important piece of information for listeners to know about the Montana Farmers Union or about you, what would you like to leave the listeners with?
Join Montana Farmers Union if you're not currently a member. It's, I hope you learned from this podcast today, there is something for everybody at Montana Farmers Union, and this is a community that's here to support you. If you are a current member, I really ask you to get actively involved, get engaged. Either that can be joining the book club and doing something at your own pace, or maybe you want to get way more engaged and you're interested in the DC fly-in. So there's something in that spectrum for everybody to find a place in our organization. If there's an opportunity in your community to serve and Farmers Union can support you, that's another great way to get engaged. Join one of our committees, come to one of our conferences, just come build community with us, expand your knowledge. So my call to action to you is to be actively involved with Farmers Union, but also actively involved in your community.
Yeah, and at the end of this episode, we'll make sure that you have the links to join Farmers Union, and all of those links will also be in our show notes. Rachel, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jody.
If you're not currently a member of Montana Farmers Union, visit montanafarmersunion.com/join-MFU and join today. If you are a current MFU member, check out the publications and calendars and find an event to get involved with. Each episode will end with a trivia question. The question will be posted on MFU social media, and the answer will be confirmed on the following episode. The trivia question for Lunch and Learn Episode 1, released on 5/31. How many states have organized divisions in the National Farmers Union? Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast is a resource for agricultural producers, support industry, and consumers. Join MFU today and make your voice heard advocating for family farms, ranches, and rural communities. Visit montanafarmersunion.com, MFUMT on Instagram, or Montana Farmers Union on Facebook to see events and opportunities. Goodbye.